My wife chose my daughter's wedding to tell me she was leaving me to go and be with her boss. She said, "You never give me what I deserve. I am leaving you now." Immediately, her lawyer brought in the divorce papers, and I signed it calmly. The next morning was the beginning of her pain. I made sure she came begging. Let me tell you how everything unfolded. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. My name is Ethan Marks, and for most of my life, I believe that love was shown in what you build, not in what you say. I wasn't the flowers and letters kind of husband, but I provided. I listened. I stayed. And I built something real. Not just the company, but the life Helena and I were supposed to share. At 56, I had long since shed the need for attention. I liked being the man in the shadows. It gave me power. It gave me peace. Helena, on the other hand, liked lights. She liked to shine. She craved admiration the way some people crave oxygen, and for a while, I tried to be that for her. But I think deep down, she resented that I never needed to be admired, that I was fine being invisible. That maybe, in some part of her heart, she wished I was more like the men who wanted to be seen. We had been married 28 years, most of them comfortable, some of them cold. The kids grew up, the fights quieted, and routine filled in the gaps where romance used to live. Helena had always been ambitious. She moved up quickly in the corporate world, eventually becoming one of the top VPs at a tech firm I, unbeknownst to her, owned. I kept it that way intentionally. I didn't want her to feel patronized. I didn't want our dynamic to shift. I wanted her to feel like she earned it all on her own, which she did, for the most part. I kept the ownership quiet, letting my managing partner be the face of the business. I handled strategy and decisions behind closed doors, preferring control over credit. In the weeks leading up to our daughter Lily's wedding, Helena seemed restless. At first, I chalked it up to the usual pre-wedding chaos. Guest lists, flower arrangements, dress fittings, but there was a distance in her I couldn't ignore. She had this faraway look when I spoke to her, like she was already somewhere else. We were driving back from a tux fitting one afternoon when I asked if everything was okay. She smiled too fast and said, "Of course. I'm just tired. It's a lot, you know." I didn't press her. I didn't want to ruin what was left of our fragile peace. But deep down, a whisper stirred. Something wasn't right. The night before the wedding, Helena slept in the guest room. She said it was because she didn't want to disturb me when she got up early. I believed her, or maybe I just chose to. That's the thing about long marriages. You learn to ignore certain alarms. You tell yourself it's just stress, or timing, or miscommunication. You rationalize silence. You dress it up and call it maturity. What I didn't know was that she had already packed her bags. That while I was practicing my father of the bride speech in the mirror, she was planning her escape. The morning of the wedding was bright and warm, one of those rare, perfect days when the world seems to be rooting for your happiness. Lily was radiant in her gown, nervous but beaming. I remember holding her hand just before we walked down the aisle and thinking, this is it. This is the part that lasts. I didn't know that by the time I gave her away, I would also be losing someone else. And not just losing her, being publicly discarded, like old luggage on a train platform. But that part hadn't happened yet. Not during the ceremony. Not during the vows. Not even during the cake cutting. That came later, when everyone thought the drama was over. If there's one thing Helena knew how to do, it was time a scene. Weddings have a way of distilling life's messiness into something polished, like hiding clutter behind closet doors when guests come over. The reception was a blur of champagne and laughter, with Lily glowing in that way only brides can. The hall was strung with soft white lights, tables dotted with peonies, and every guest smiling like we were all living inside a Hallmark movie. I tried to stay in the moment, to let myself feel the weight of what this day meant, not just for Lily, but for me. I'd walked her down the aisle. I'd danced with her in front of 100 people. I'd cried, quietly, during her vows. For one day, everything felt whole. But even then, something gnawed at the back of my mind. Helena had been on edge, snapping at the caterer, checking her phone obsessively. Her smile looked practiced, like she was performing a role she no longer wanted. She approached the mic for the toast with a strange glint in her eyes. I thought she might say something sentimental, maybe about Lily's childhood, or the day we first held her in the hospital. Instead, she lifted her glass and smiled that thin, composed smile of hers. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice calm, unnaturally so. "To bravery, and to finally choosing happiness." People clapped politely. Some looked confused. Then she turned to me and added, "And to knowing when to walk away from things that no longer serve us." I remember tilting my head, unsure of what I was hearing. Then came the knife. "I'm leaving you, Ethan," she said plainly, like she was announcing the weather. "This marriage has been dead for years, and today, I'm done pretending." The room fell completely silent. Someone dropped a fork. The DJ stopped mid-track. Lily gasped audibly, her veil trembling. Helena didn't flinch. "You never gave me what I deserved. I am leaving you now," she said, like it was a rehearsed line. And then, God help me, a man in a suit walked in from the hallway holding a manila folder. Her lawyer. Right there, in the middle of our daughter's wedding reception, she handed me divorce papers. I didn't look at them. I didn't even open the folder. I just signed where she pointed. My hands didn't shake. My voice never rose. That seemed to frustrate her, maybe even scare her a little. Because for all her drama, Helena thrived on control, and my calmness robbed her of it. I handed the folder back and said only one thing: "Thank you for the clarity." Lily ran out of the hall crying. Her husband, bless him, chased after her. Guests whispered in clusters, stunned. My brother-in-law muttered, "Jesus Christ," under his breath and turned away. Helena stood there, holding her champagne glass like she expected applause. None came. She blinked, then walked off with the lawyer like she had just closed a business deal. In that moment, I felt something shift in me, not anger, not sadness, just release, like a rope had finally snapped. Later that night, I sat alone on the edge of the hotel bed, still in my suit, watching the room spin slowly around me. My daughter's bouquet lay forgotten on the desk. My phone buzzed with concerned messages I didn't answer. There was no outburst, no confrontation, just a quiet collapse of something that had been rotting for years. She thought she'd humiliate me. She thought she'd win. But all I felt was freedom inching in like the morning tide, and a whisper deep in my chest: "Let her go. She just did you a favor." The morning after the wedding was unusually quiet. I woke early, habit, mostly, and sat in the kitchen nursing a cup of black coffee while the rest of the house slept off the chaos. I stared out the window at the garden Helena used to fuss over, remembering how she'd once spent hours out there arranging stones around her lavender beds. That was years ago. These days, she barely looked at it, just like she barely looked at me. She'd packed her bags and vanished the night before, just after the reception. Said she was off to begin her real life with Jordan Lane, her new fiancé, her boss, or so she thought. I didn't stop her. I watched her walk out with her head high, wearing smug-like perfume. But I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. What she didn't know, and what made the whole thing almost laughable in its irony, was that Jordan Lane hadn't been her boss for over a week. I'd fired him. Quietly. Deliberately. With no public statement and no room for return. Embezzlement. A quiet audit had revealed he'd been funneling client funds through a shell vendor. The proof was airtight. I could have dragged his name through the mud, but I chose discretion. After all, when you own the company, you don't need noise to make power moves. You just sign papers, shake hands with your lawyers, and let the system do the rest. I knew Helena had been seeing someone. I'd even guessed it might be Jordan. But I hadn't realized how far she'd planned to leap until she jumped right into a disappearing act. By mid-morning, she was calling around frantically. I didn't answer when she tried me. But I knew people who saw her that day, people who told me she had stormed into Jordan's luxury apartment, only to find it empty. She tried his cell. Straight to voicemail. She tried his assistant. Gone. She even went to his gym, and the guy at the front desk told her, flatly, he canceled his membership last week. That's when panic started to eat at her, fast and merciless. Because in her mind, she'd left me for a new beginning, a more exciting man, a life where she would finally be seen. And instead, she'd walked into silence. I went into the office that afternoon, just like normal. People gave me tight nods. Nobody asked about the wedding. Nobody needed to. My team, my real team, the senior partners who'd been with me since the early days, knew how to follow my lead. Jordan's office had already been cleaned out. His nameplate was gone. I walked past that door without looking twice. That's when my managing director, Paul, approached me with a manila envelope. "Termination package for Helena," he said quietly. "As you requested. No severance. We're invoking the breach clause. Found messages between her and Jordan on the company server. IT archived them. It's all in there. I didn't read them. I didn't need to. Whatever love we had was already past tense. What mattered now was drawing the line. She hadn't just betrayed me as a husband. She'd crossed the line as an employee, and that mattered to me more than she would ever understand." 3 days passed before the letter reached her. I imagined the scene clearly. Her sitting at the breakfast bar of whatever condo she'd rented, still clinging to the illusion that Jordan was just delayed, that this was all temporary. Then the knock on the door, the legal envelope in hand. The sudden realization that everything she'd gambled for was gone. Her marriage, her career, her reputation, all for a man who'd ghosted her in a fantasy that never existed. And still, she didn't know I owned the company. That was the part that made it all so rich. She thought she'd been wronged by fate, when really, she'd just underestimated me. Again, Helena never did handle silence well. By the end of the 3rd day, her world had gone unervingly still. No calls from Jordan, no job to report to, no recognition to bask in. The woman who once strutted through offices in power heels and tailored blazers now found herself locked out of her email, her ID badge deactivated, her title erased. At first, she thought it was a mistake. She called HR. They redirected her to legal. Legal never picked up. Then the envelope came, plain, stamped, and absolute. Inside, 2 pages that cut deeper than any words I could have spoken. Termination effective immediately. All benefits revoked. A copy of the IT audit, her personal messages with Jordan attached. Printed in black and white. Her affair, her manipulation, her misuse of company time and resources. The formal tone of the letter didn't leave room for sympathy. It was surgical, clean. Just like I'd asked. I didn't see her reaction, but Paul did. He watched from across the street as she stood outside the building, blinking at the letter like it was written in a language she couldn't understand. She was still in a blazer, still trying to look composed, but her hands trembled. She read it once, then again, and then she walked away, slower this time, like gravity had turned up just for her. She didn't cry. Helena never cried in public, but the cracks were starting to show. Lily hadn't spoken to her since the wedding. She refused to take her mother's calls, didn't respond to her emails. "How dare she use my wedding like that?" she'd said to me through tears the day after. She made it about herself. She ruined everything. I tried to comfort her, but part of me was glad she saw Helena for who she really was. Not because I wanted my daughter to hurt, but because I needed her to understand that what happened wasn't just between Helena and me. It was an unraveling that reached every corner of our family. Helena's first email to me after the fallout was brief. "I don't understand what's happening. Why would they fire me like that? I gave 10 years of my life to that company." I didn't respond. She sent another 2 days later. This one was longer, more frantic. "Jordan hasn't called me. I think he's gone. Did you know? Did you know something?" Still, I said nothing. Not because I enjoyed watching her spiral. Though I'd be lying if I said it wasn't satisfying in a quiet, justified way, but because I knew words wouldn't fix anything. She had made her choice. Loudly. Publicly. And now she was learning that every performance has an audience, and some of them remember the script. Eventually, she started showing up, outside the office, outside my house. The first time, I didn't answer the door. The second time, I opened it just long enough to look her in the eyes and say, "Don't do this." She looked thinner, tired. Her makeup was off, smudged, like she hadn't slept. "Why didn't you tell me you own the company?" she whispered. That was the moment it clicked for her. The moment all the scattered pieces locked into place. Her breath caught, and for a second, she looked like she might faint. "You knew," she said. "You knew the whole time." "Yes," I said. "I did." She backed away slowly, like she was afraid of what else I might be capable of. I didn't tell her about Jordan's embezzlement. I didn't tell her about the messages we found. Some things, I figured, she didn't need to know. Let her live with the questions. Let her wonder how much of her fall was her own doing, and how much of it was a consequence she never saw coming. That was the justice I chose, not revenge. Just clarity. Helena showed up at the office one more time. This time not as an executive, not as a woman in control, but as someone untethered. She waited in the lobby for over an hour, demanding to see the board, demanding answers. But no one owed her an audience anymore. Not after the audit. Not after the staged betrayal. When the receptionist finally relented and called up, it wasn't the board who responded, it was me. I stepped out of my office, now clearly marked with my name in brushed steel. Ethan Marks, CEO. She saw it before she saw me. And when our eyes met, I saw the last piece of her confidence fall away. She hadn't known. For all her ambition and supposed intuition, she never once guessed that the company she'd poured her pride into, the one she'd used as leverage to leave me, was mine. I hadn't hidden it out of shame. I'd hidden it because I knew what power did to people like her. She looked like she had something rehearsed, but the words failed her. Her mouth opened and closed twice before she managed, "Ethan, please. Just talk to me." I nodded toward a small conference room nearby. Glass walls, sterile table, no distractions. We sat across from each other like strangers. She started talking fast, desperate to rewrite history. "I made a mistake," she said. "Jordan, he tricked me. I didn't know he was using me. I thought he loved me. I never meant to hurt you, not like that, not in front of everyone." She reached across the table, but I didn't move. I just stared at her hands. Her nails were chipped. Her wedding ring was gone. "You meant to hurt me," I said quietly. "You wanted to humiliate me. You chose the most public moment of our lives to do it. And now that it's backfired, you want sympathy." Tears welled in her eyes, and for a moment, I thought maybe they were real. Maybe this was the woman I married all those years ago, the one who once held my hand during my father's funeral, the one who whispered, "I believe in you," before my first business pitch. But then I remembered all the nights she came home late, all the cold glances, all the moments I brushed off because I didn't want to admit she'd stopped choosing me a long time ago. She only realized what she had when the floor vanished beneath her. "I thought I deserved more," she said, her voice cracking. I thought you didn't see me anymore. That you'd given up?" "No," I replied. "I was building something. For us. For our future. But you couldn't wait. You needed applause now." Her lip trembled. "Can we try again? Please. Let's go to counseling. I'll resign quietly. I'll make this right." I shook my head slowly. "Helena, I'm not angry anymore. I don't hate you. But this? Us. It ended when you made your toast." She crumbled then. Not in a dramatic, soap opera way. It was more of a quiet collapse, a slow realization that no amount of words could reverse what she'd set in motion. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just nodded, eyes glassy, and stood up. She paused at the door, like she wanted to say one more thing, but she didn't. She walked out, and this time, I knew it was final. Afterward, I sat alone in that glass room, letting the silence stretch. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. Just empty. I had won, technically. But winning wasn't the point. What mattered was the line I had drawn, the boundary I'd enforced. And the part of me that still cared for her, still remembered our better years, had to die a little in order to do it. The house was quieter than ever. Not the kind of quiet that follows a fight. Charged, tense, waiting for something to break. But the kind of quiet that settles in when there's truly no one left to speak. It took me a few weeks to clear out Helena's things. Not out of bitterness, just practicality. She didn't come for them. I didn't ask her to. Her side of the closet became a space I didn't rush to fill. I boxed up her books, her scarves, her perfume bottles. Each item a ghost of the woman she once pretended to be. Not the woman I married, no. That woman had disappeared years ago. This version of her, the one who toasted to new beginnings, with eyes full of pride and betrayal, was someone I could no longer mourn. Because to mourn her meant admitting I still wanted her. And I didn't. My daughter, Lily, came over often during those weeks. She and her husband moved their honeymoon back to give the family time to settle, Though settle was a generous word. She had not spoken to her mother since the wedding, and though I didn't push her, I knew the silence wore on her. She texted me yesterday. Lily said one afternoon while helping me replant some overgrown shrubs in the backyard. Just said she's sorry. I didn't answer. She looked up at me, her eyes too old for 27. Is that wrong of me? I set down the spade and wiped my hands. No, sweetheart. Some wounds don't get cleaned with a text. She nodded but didn't respond. I saw her jaw tighten, same as mine when I'm trying not to cry. It struck me then how much my daughter had seen, how many facades she had unknowingly lived beneath. She deserved a better example of love. Not the transactional kind, not the performative kind, but the kind rooted in patience and presence. And if she was ever going to believe that kind of love existed, it had to start with me believing I was worthy of it, too. I didn't date. Not yet. That wasn't what I needed. What I needed was to rediscover who I was outside of being her husband. I began rising early, walking the trail behind our neighborhood before sunrise. I returned to reading the old novels I loved in college but shelved during the years when life moved too fast. I even started painting again, badly, on weekends. The silence that once threatened to crush me became something else, a companion, a container for reflection. And in that quiet, I realized I hadn't failed Helena. I had loved her the best way I knew how. But she wanted something else, something louder, shinier, more visible. That was her right. Just as it was mine to say enough when her choices cut me open. She still tried, every so often. A birthday card. A forwarded article. Once, a voicemail saying she missed my calm. That part hit the hardest. Because I knew what she meant. She missed the stability, the assurance, the man who caught her when she faltered. But she never loved that calm for what it was. She loved it for how it served her. And I couldn't be that man anymore. Not for her. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't something you do for others. It's a release you grant yourself, a severing of the cord that ties you to the fire. I forgave her the night I watched her walk away without chasing after her. I forgave her again when I didn't respond to the voicemail. And again each time I walked into my office and passed her old nameplate, now replaced, removed, forgotten by the team that kept moving forward. One day, maybe years from now, she'll sit alone in some new apartment, scrolling through photos of Lily's wedding, and feel a pang she won't know how to name. She'll remember the toast, the silence that followed, and the man who signed the papers without flinching. And in that moment, she might finally understand the cost of choosing ego over loyalty. As for me, I no longer live in the shadows. My name is on the company sign now. My voice, once the quiet anchor beneath everyone else's noise, now leads the meetings. I show up, not just for my daughter, not just for my staff, but for myself. The man I am today isn't angry. He's not wounded. He's not bitter. He's just free. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss any of the stories we share daily. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who broke your trust? We'd love to hear your story. See you soon in the next one.